Friends, today we're going to be working on Unit 7, Lesson 1. You'll be turning in pages 303 through 305, but we'll also be working on page 301. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is this. Now, when we look at this, we're looking at arrays, and arrays are organizational ways to put things together in rows and columns. So if we have one single one of these, that guy is odd. No partner there. This one is even. There are two things, there is a partner. So if you can find a partner to something, it is even. This one, is it odd or even? Unmute yourself and tell me right now if this is odd or even. Correct, that one is odd. We have 2 on top and 1 on the bottom. What about this one? Is this one odd or even? Correct, that one is even. There are 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Now, if I were to make an equation for each of these, this one right here would be 1 plus 0 equals 1. This one right here would be 1 plus 1 equals 2, because there's a total of 2 squares. Who can tell me what the equation for this one would be? Correct, that one is 2 plus 1 equals 3. What's the equation for this one? Two plus 2 equals 4. Okay, so arrays can look really small like this, really small like this. These are not arrays. These are just boxes that are organized together. This is another array right here. There's 10 on the top and there's 10 on the bottom. Is this even or odd? Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me if this is even or odd. Yeah, it is even. And I'll pause and ask, what's the equation that will tell us what this is? Yeah, an equation would be 10 plus 10 equals 20. Any questions about the way that we're organizing this? Something important to remember is if it goes across, it's a row. And if it goes up and down, it's a column. I know that you can't see that really well, but I just wanted to make sure and write that down so that we've got that. All right, we're gonna look now at page 301. This first part says, loop the rows. And remind me, do rows go across or up and down? So for this one, we're going to go ahead and loop the rows. And this one says loop the columns. So if these are rows, columns must be the ones that go up and down. How many loops are we going to get in the end? Yeah. And so we ended up with 5 loops on this one, and we ended up with 2 loops on that one. Okay. So moving on to number 3, it says write how many are in each row and each column, then write 2 equations for each array. All right. So how many are in this row? How many are in this row? Yeah, we can just finish that out. What about the columns? We have 3 in each. So we can write this in 2 ways. One of the ways we can write it is 2 plus 2 plus 2. And that equals 6. We're just adding the rows together. What would the other way be to write this equation? – 2 All right, I'm gonna pause right now and see if there are any questions about what we're doing right now. We are stepping into early multiplication. You use a lot of arrays when we're looking at multiplication and division, because you could also say 3 times 2 equals 6. There are 3 in each column, there are 2 in each row, there's a total of 6. So we could also write 3 times 2 equals 6. Isn't that amazing? So all of those are kind of the same equation. They all total up to that 6. All right, let's do the same for our stars. How many are in each row? How many are in each column? All right, and now I'd like for you to raise your hand and tell me what are some equations that we could write down here to show the stars. Four plus 4 equals 8. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. And 2 times 4 equals 8, or 4 times 2 equals 8. So we're getting into it, my friends. It's pretty exciting stuff. All right, any questions on this page before we move on? All right, so now is when you need your ruler. I have a ruler over here somewhere, but where is it? Okay, I'll use this ruler. It measures inches on one side and centimeters on the other. I sent a printable ruler to your families with this week's bulletin, the weekly letter I send out. So if you need to print that out to do this page, you can do that. All right, it says measure in inches. Draw rows and columns. Write the number of small squares. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler here, and going up from the 1, 2, and 3, I'm making my columns. And this way, I'll make my rows. And it looks like we've only got 2 rows. We're going to draw 1 line. Now, how many squares do I have here? What's an equation that we could write for this one? Didn't we do that one over here? We sure did. Same thing. 4 plus 4 equals 8. 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. All right, let's do the same thing for this one. And then put the total of squares down in the bottom. So in this top part, we are measuring inches. We have 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. So we could have 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6, 3 plus 3 equals 6, or 3 times 2 equals 6. Any of those are going to work for that one. You don't have to write an equation down, but that's what we're doing there. All right, this one says measure in centimeters. Draw rows and columns, write the number of squares. So you can go ahead and do that right now. And I will pause, and you can let me know in the chat when you are finished. Remember, the centimeters are the smaller ones. So we've just basically had a little crash course in arrays. What are arrays? What are the kinds of equations that can come from them, and some basic measurement stuff. Does anybody have questions about arrays? All right, don't put away your centimeter ruler because you will continue to use it right now. All right, this says measure in centimeters. Draw rows and columns, and then we're gonna shade it to show halves, thirds, and fourths. Okay, so this shouldn't be too tricky, but we're gonna do the same thing that we did before, where we're gonna measure these and draw the centimeters. So go ahead and get that going right now and tell me that you're done in the chat when you're finished. We're gonna do the whole page of drawing all of the centimeters and everything right now. I kind of wish that they had just done this for us instead of having us do all this measuring. This is taking more time than I would like right now. And you can see, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be close, but not perfect. We are not robots, are we? Okay, so yours should look a little bit like mine. It's not going to look exactly like mine because we are not robots. So we're looking at halves, thirds, and fourths. So halves means we're going to divide it into 2 pieces. Thirds means we're going to divide it into 3 pieces. And fourths means we're going to divide it into 4 pieces. And when I say 4 pieces, I mean 4 even pieces, okay? So this first one, we're going to divide it in half. So we could do it either half like this. Ooh, that's the only way we can do it. It has to be 2 even pieces. So think of it as like cutting a cake evenly. As evenly as possible with you and somebody else. And you want the same exact amount. So that would be half there. Now thirds means that we need to have 3 even pieces. When I look this way, there are 4 pieces, so I can't do that very well. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna turn it on its side and I'm gonna color that middle section. If I color just that middle section, I can see that the top is 1/3, the middle is 1/3, and the bottom is 1/3. So we have divided it into 2 even pieces, and now we divided it into 3 even pieces. Now the last one, we need to divide it into fourths, so 4 even pieces. Lucky for us, there are 4 columns, and so we're gonna color the first one and the third one, and we will leave the other 2 blank so we can show that we have 3 even pieces. So this is the part that we did together, or kind of like I showed you more. The next part, I'm going to be asking more from you guys to show me what you know and what you think. So number 13 says shade to show halves in 2 different ways. When we're showing halves, how many pieces are we dividing it into? Unmute yourself and tell me. Thank you. We're dividing it into 2 pieces. So how can we divide these two different ways so we have two even pieces? All right, so one way is to color in two of the columns this way. And the other way is to color in two of the rows. I'm kind of irritated that my rows are so wonky on this one. So I'm just going to do that. Use my eraser and draw my line again. Right there. Oh, so much better. Okay, so now it says show fourths in two different ways. So what we've noticed is we can draw it vertically and horizontally. So how can we show our fourths in two different ways? All right, so I'm going to draw my vertical ones over here, and then the other one will be my horizontal. I'm not doing a perfect job of coloring, and I'm okay with that, but I can clearly tell where my thirds and fourths are. When I see yours, when you turn it in, I should also be able to see it pretty easy, which ones are your thirds and which ones are your fourths. All right, this last one says shade to show halves two different ways. So half is how many pieces? All right, show it to me. All right, so your paper should look pretty much like mine at this point. You might have chosen to color these ones instead of those ones, and that is just fine. Any questions about halves, thirds, and fourths? All right, the last one, the last page says more practice with partitions and equal shares. Measure in centimeters, draw rows and columns, and write the number of small squares. And then here is where it says to show equal shares. 2 halves, 3 thirds, and 4 fourths. This I'm going to have you do on your own. When you're finished, take a picture of this page and turn it in to me on Seesaw.